future buildings being smart, the entire process of construction, as well as operation and maintenance, will also be smart in the future. Technological support, typically the IT technology, will enable us to work easily and live enjoyably at all the stages of buildings, including design, transaction, construction, operation and maintenance. At the design stage, architects can make an intelligent analysis of the project location with the big data technology, carry out architectural design and scheme selection through the professional and efficient BIM technology, and directly communicate with owners and contractors remotely by using such technologies as internet and holographic projection to enhance work efficiency. Furthermore, architects can conduct a simulation of day lighting and wind environment with the BIM technology in a virtual space to determine an optimal scheme. In that virtual space, architects can also perform detailed design, collision checks on pipes and wires, multidisciplinary collaborative checks, and space coordination in order to detect problems in advance, reduce rework and lower costs. Besides, the direct application of big data, such as material prices and construction cost indicators and BIM models, makes it easy to take off quantities and estimate costs precisely. Finally, architects will develop the component-based design for implementing the prefabricated construction from production to installation. At the plant, technologies like 3D printing enable the mass production of building components, turning traditional construction workers into industrial workers. As a result, the traditional wet trades on construction sites will be replaced by integrated prefabricated building. At the construction stage, BIM-based 5D simulation of construction enables contractors to get control over project progress, costs and changes, obtain fast access to plans of quantities, materials, and labor for optimizing resource allocation, controlling project costs in a timely and accurate way, and achieving lean management of projects. In combination with Internet of Things, mobile applications and cloud technologies, contractors can perform green, lean, and intensive management of project progress, costs, personnel, quality, safety, and materials at construction sites in a monitor room to ensure that project objectives are realized in an effective manner and smart construction is achieved. At the completion stage, the BIM model has already integrated information and data from all the stages of construction, allowing owners and contractors to carry out settlement, acceptance, etc. in an intuitive way. At the operation and maintenance stage, the structure, equipment, services, and management of a building can be combined in an optimized manner as needed to offer an energy-efficient, comfortable, healthy, and human-oriented environment for residents. Furthermore, the thoroughly integrated BIM model will continue to work in repair, renovation, reconstruction, and extension, offering great convenience to owners and project teams. The in-building navigation system helps visitors to get real-time information about positions and routes. In the future, smart buildings will redefine the relationship between buildings and human beings, between buildings and the ecological environment, making our life and work more harmonious and better. Build intelligent future with technology. Glodon is looking forward to building the future of buildings together with you. Glodon, just for your blueprint.
Greetings from Glodon. A very good afternoon to ladies and gentlemen. You are in the live webinar of New Digital Construction, New Digital Costing, Bridge to 5D BIM. I'm Kimi from Glodon Company Limited, Southeast Asia Marketing Team. A warm welcome to everyone who joining us today. Before we kickstart today's webinar, let me just remind you guys that to get the most out of this webinar, you may engage with us by using the Q&A panel to send in your questions at any point of this webinar. Chat messages and private messages might not be responded on time, so please use the Q&A panel only. You are muted during the webinar to ensure our speaker will deliver his speech without any disruption. And for those who wish to have an in-depth discussion with us, please feel free to contact us after this webinar, and we will surely respond to your email. Lastly, there will be a webinar survey sent to everyone at the end of this session. Please help us to complete the webinar survey and verify your email address in the survey form, as the webinar certificate will be sent to your email address. So, to kickstart today's webinar, let me formally introduce our speaker of today, Mr. Nas, Principal Business Expert of Glodon Company Limited. Nas previously was a senior project executive at various top construction companies. He is also a registered quantity surveyor under a statutory body of Board of Quantity Surveyors Malaysia and a member of Royal Institution of Surveyors Malaysia. Prior to joining Glodon, he has intensively involved throughout the construction phases of various projects, such as mixed development projects, industrial buildings, and infrastructures such as MRT projects. He is now focusing on developing the AEC industry across Asia region towards digital environment. Graduated with honor degree of quantity surveying, then further his studies to Master of Project Management. Currently, he is doing his PhD, concentrating on research of infrastructure projects and digital construction. So the use of BIM is continuing to grow within the AEC industry, with people moving away from thinking it's just a tool to design and visualize a building. Instead, they are realizing the true benefits of BIM can provide all the parties involved in the construction projects. In this webinar, you will join a journey through the new BIM efficiencies you can achieve today to impact your projects tomorrow. Presented by Glodon, New Digital Construction, New Digital Costing, Bridge to 5D BIM webinar, explore how BIM and digital construction technology can benefit your projects. Join the conversation, engage with us. So one last reminder before we kickstart. Please do engage with us by typing in your questions in the Q&A panel at any point of today's webinar. And now, I shall pass my time to our speaker, Mr. Nuts, to kickstart his main agenda. Hey Nuts, your turn please.
Hi, all right, thank you, Kimi. So good afternoon, everyone. So I'm glad that we are here again for our certificate webinar series, and for today we'll be delivering about the new digital construction, new digital costing. So we'll be discussing some in-depth topic, especially this time around we'll be focused more on the information across the project lifecycle. All right, so stay with me. Okay. So to start with, I would like to have some brief introductions about what is digital cost management. So there are basically three types of digital cost management. We are talking about the first type, and the exporting quantities to traditional estimating software. So basically on the first type, it quickly calculates the quantities and export them into the spreadsheet forms. So it is a very simple process. However, it requires the additional steps, such as developing and linking up the formulas to provide meanings and the intended results. So that is on the first type. And there's second types. It's a bridging beam design tool with estimating software. So if you're familiar that sometimes the engineers or even the QS, they try to bridge, from the design tools to the estimating tools. And that way it actually can give a very much focused output, especially in regards to the cost estimation and as well as for the measurement. So this type connects the design from a design tool with the cost estimating software. And talking about the third type is using a beam-based estimating tool. So the third type is basically facilitates and control the cost estimation and analyze within the model itself. Okay, it embedded the cost within the model to support automated quantity extractions, some various reports development, and visual cost information, as well as the manual takeoff. Okay. And to touch a bit on the digital transformation for the quantity business, right? So this is something that, especially for the organizations, we have to look where we are at the moment when it comes to the transformation. So the transformation does not just happen instantly. So it requires the steps, some strategic steps, and some procedures to make sure that the adoptions of digital solution is being utilized fully, right? So we're talking about the first step, the first level is about the strengthening the foundation. Okay, so we need to ask whether the current QS practice can be digitized. Are the QS taking the advantage of the technologies and the IT, and are the QS services promoting additional values? Okay. And talking about the second level, right, the development of the digital opportunity. So from the first level, so we talk about whether the QS can develop a new services or values that quickly and radically get ahead. This will separate especially those with those competitors in the industry. So some are moving ahead, some are capable to handle more jobs, things like that, and some are still maybe in a manual process. So this is how that digital solutions will help you in the business. If you talk about a simple example, right? And then talking about the third level, about building the new ecosystem. So we also try to know whether they are new competitors that disrupting the current QS. As I can see that the trend, even the engineers are capable sometimes to output a certain quantities and to provide a costing. Okay, but the questions, there are still questions in that process. So we will discuss more about that. Okay. So let's jump to the first section about how BIM has paved the way for the construction digital transformation in the area of the 5D BIM digital cost management. Okay, this is more towards the, if you remember just now about the second types on how we try to bridge between the design tools to the estimating software, or we just try to work out the cost estimation or the quantity from the design tools. Okay, so there are technical issues that we need to realize. Okay, so these are the points are not just to be remembered by the cost professional or the QS, but it's a very important to the project owner to acknowledge this. Okay, because we try to avoid the cost overrun, and we don't want the project owner or the client to suffer of any uncontrollable costs. Okay, so one of the very common reasons that the project cost is overrun is due to the technical issues that faced by the QS. So if you talk about BIM, okay, so these are not, I would say, always happen in a project at the moment, but as the adoptions of the BIM increases, So there's a high likelihood that these issues will also occur. So for us, right, if you're the business owner, or even you are from the academicians, or even you are the QS, so we have to realize about these technical issues. So I'm here to explain some of the issues. So the first one is the overlapping model. So when the overlapping model happens, right? So imagine that the two columns are basically joined. If we talk about the designing tools, so that basically will create more quantities from that model, right? So when we try to generate the quantity from that model, it automatically will increase the quantity. So imagine if a lot of overlapping happens, right? It's between beams, between slabs, or between the services. So this is something that we as the QS need to be aware of, right? To make sure that there's no unnecessary cost that we add into our cost estimation. Okay. Secondly, about the wrong categorization. So the quantity reports generated by the design tools, all right, will lead to the wrong categorizations and creates the confusion. This is because that it's very often that the designer or the modeler, they might not think as from the cost aspects. Okay, so this is something that that I experience as well. Right, when the reports are generated out, right, they are in terms of the categorizations, it creates some confusion, and we do not know whether some of the items has been also been included inside while it should be separated. So using a design tool, it doesn't really give you that kinds of control and kind of detail checking. Okay. So there are also issues about geometrical cutoff. So this is about the simplifications in the model, and lack of cost aspects such as the intersections between the entities, you know, the beam and the slab, you know, and the when intersections happens, right, between the entities, imagine between the column and the beam, it will create a shape which, if you measure it in complexities, is something like when you try to output the quantity of the formwork even, it is hard to output that area when the geometry cutoff is in a very odd shape. So this is again a challenge for the QS, and we already struggle when we try to put some imagination in a 2D vision. But imagine in a 3D vision, if the geometrical cutoff is not being put in the right way, it also cause some confusion to the QS, and definitely will lead to error in terms of the estimation. So another thing is like a dumb tagging and legends, right? So like just like the CAD, okay, the modeler sometimes focus on the visual rather than the information. So like, for example, the wall type is being modified in the properties, but the tag will not be updated. That is because there's no connection between the tagging and the model. So that's why I call it as a dumb tagging, or even the legends, okay? And remember that we always deal with the design change. So this brings to the point number 5 about the outdated and the lack of model information. So there's a lack of a control measure of the model and the information, and poor execution procedures at the organization level. Okay, so sometimes we do not know what are the right processes when it comes to output the quantity from the 3D model or the beam model. Okay, and some of the quantities are not available for the QS to output the estimation. So this is also a common things that happen when the QS try to deal with the beam model. And of course, not all the QS are being exposed with this kind of environment. Some are maybe familiar on how to operate some design tools, okay, but some maybe have no idea about it. Right? So there's design tool is not something that is very easy to operate. Okay, so you require some intensive training to be familiar with it. So if, let's say, a QS not familiar with that design tools, this definitely will prolong the process, not just will lead to the error in terms of the estimation. Okay, and finally on the design change. Okay, so this is the lack of involvement during the design change, because everything is in a BIM models, and there's not much sense of control that that able for the QS to to be more involved in that project setting. Okay, so these are basically the technical issues in general when we try to beam ourselves, especially not with the right design tools. Okay. So now it comes to the position number one. So we have quite a high numbers of participants at the moment, and let's hear from you guys. Okay, so I'm going to launch our first poll. So let's take 30 seconds to vote out, right? So I want to know, as a quantity surveyor or the cost professional, do you involve or you give a direct input during the development of the BIM model by the designer? So let's hear about your suggestion on this. Okay. Okay. Can we have another 30 seconds? So I hope that all of you will vote. So we want to know whether the QS will give a direct will usually involve in whether you yourself or your organization you be involved in the BIM development. Okay. So the BIM model basically always being controlled by the modeler, right? So we want to know whether the QS, someone's that be in charge in terms of the cost aspects, will take responsibles for that. Okay, so I'm going to end our poll. Okay. Okay. So as you can see here, the results, 36% voted yes, and 35% voted no. So I assume this 35% have involved a QS that involved in the project that uses a BIM model, right? And 29% is not applicable, right? So these are maybe in the situations where the QS not be involved in this kind of projects. So we can see, so I hopefully that maybe at the end of the session or during the survey, you can give some insights on what kind of involvement or some direct input that you give, especially to the designer or the modeler when it comes to the BIM model development. Okay. So let's continue our session. So thank you for voting that. And it brings us to the second sections about the effective information requirements for the level of detail in BIM and the cost management role. Okay. So this discussion will be a little bit of technical. Of course, we need to ask ourselves why we need to have this kind of control, or some we need to have a proper management when it comes to the BIM cost management. Okay. So the previous issue that we discussed lead to the cost freeze in the project. So based from the what if analysis, there are high likelihood and negative consequences, especially towards the cost. For example, if the number of void of services not being managed, so we talk about the approximate numbers of voids, a couple thousands as the cost overrun. So in addition, with overlapping of quantities and many others. So um, this is a situation that whenever it comes to the cost overrun, regardless of who come up with the BIM model, the QS will still, or the cost managers will still be responsible to it. So we need to study, right? What if, let's say, we are not managing it, or we use not the right tool for us to process our costs and to justify our costs? Okay, so the first issue is about the inaccurate quantity. Okay, this is because especially for I will get to the next session about the inaccurate quantity. The second part is on the dispute among the project teams due to the no standard or the poor contractual agreement. This is issues that I've discussed earlier about the information that is not available to the QS. So where we want to get that, right? And it's not being put in the contractual agreement that the BIM model has to have some information for the QS to use. Okay, so this is the thing that we need to think why we need to manage the cost, the BIM cost, right? And another thing is a poor cost estimation and control. Of course, there are, throughout the project lifecycle, there are a lot of changes happen, and these sometimes are not being notified to the contractor. So if let's say we're using a BIM model as a whole, sometimes that the QS will take some time to extract out the information, and it's hard to control if, let's say, it is operating on the design tools, right? So you need to have a proper standards or the proper tools that makes you ready to jump into that kind of business. So that's why we will touch a bit later on about how we can mitigate this kind of situation. Okay, and of course, if we're not managing it, that leads to the dissatisfaction of the project owner, right? And why we need to need to control for the BIM cost management. So a QS always need to improve its values and the principles rather than being negatively disrupted with the use of the technology. Okay, so this is a trend that we have to accept that is coming, and while we are doing so, we need to ensure that we as a QS, we're still able to provide an accurate measurement of quantity with the compliance, with the SMM compliance. Okay, and secondly, it's about having integrated solutions, right, between the quantities and the costing. So it's not just you have a tool that helps you to quantify, but it does not really connect with the cost aspects, right? With your unit rates or with your previous projects, that you use as a reference. And of course, we need to have a collaborative a platform, okay, for us to always maintain that communication among the project teams, okay? And as a QS also, we need to increase our values, okay, to the project owner. So to make sure that just now when we talk about the third level of the digitalization, transformation, there are some disruptions that happen that engineers will able to provide the cost. Okay, so this is something that we try to avoid. At the same time, we as a QS, we try to increase our values, and of course for the future use. Okay, so this is about the level of detail. There are basically a couple of terms used in the industry around the world when it comes to the level of information. Sometimes we call it as the level of detail. So I would get started with the ISO, right? So this is the new standards that be introduced to us. It may not be widely used yet in the Asia regions, and this basically introduces the methods for describing information to be exchanged, including the object detail, the dimensionality, location, appearance, parametric behaviors, and any associated documentation. So before the establishment of the new ISO, okay, so UK has been used the information levels known as the level of definition. So they use the LOD1, LOD3, LOD4, and so on, right? Meanwhile, in the US, for the US, okay, the specification use the concept of level of development, okay? So they have a LOD 100, 200, 300, 350, 400, and up to 500, okay? So this is, I think this is very important because we talk about the information today. And I think it's very important for a QS to basically get some ideas why, how that some of the terms being used, and when you get to another projects, sometimes it's being mentioned differently. Okay. So in a previous session, I touched on the 5D beam definition. So you need to understand that there's no such term as a fake beam or fake 5D beam and things like that. So same like LOD, okay? Some people and some culture define it differently. So they are not wrong. Maybe they just differ from a different standards or not the latest standards, okay? For me, wrong is a very strong word, and in construction, the nature itself is very fragmented. So we need to analyze things carefully before we deliver some information that may not be telling the whole picture of it. Okay, so if you have a different perspective than the others, so discuss it and try not to lay out some negative words so that we will embark. You know, as a QS, we will embark this BIM era with a BIM with a better pass, right? So this is just now when I mentioned about the level of definitions that widely used in the UK right now, as they are changing to the latest ISO standards. Okay, so this is I believe we're some of the organizations also are using the same standards. Okay, where the level of definition consists of two parts. One is the model of detail. Okay, where it defines the graphical appearance of the information model objects as specified in the information particulars. And another part is about the model information. So believe me that another 10 years or another 10 years, hopefully not that long, I believe we will still be discussing about having this the right terminologies. So again, like I said, there's no right or wrong. It's just different standards that we are referred to. So if you involve in a particular project, right, and you use that kind of terms, whether it's the level of definitions or level of development or level of information needs, so make sure that you use that kind of terms throughout that project, okay? So it does not bring that kind of confusions. So let's launch our next poll, right? Give me some time to catch a breath. All right, so I'm going to launch another poll. So in this poll, basically, we want to know, right? We want to know from you whether do you involve in the development of the BIM execution plan in the project, in the construction project. Okay, so we want to know you as a QS, how deep you get, you know, how deep you get involved in this process. So the BIM execution plan is a quite a technical document that maybe from the cost aspect, maybe the cost managers or only the QS managers be involved, or sometimes even worse that sometimes the QS no representative to give a direct input. So let's learn from in this session whether you as a QS, do you involve in the development, or even if you are the engineers or the project manager, do you involve in the development of the BIM execution plan? So I'll just give another 15 seconds. Right. So they quite have numbers of participants, and I'm glad that you guys are here to join us. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we end our poll. So I'm sharing you the results. Seems that 23% of us here, we involve in the development of the BIM execution plan. Okay, meanwhile, 77% are not involving in the development. So what we try to get from here is that about the importance of the documentations, especially in the early planning of the BIM development, right? We need to have I always mention about the standards. I always mention about having the right information during the, especially during the pre-contract stage, so that we can have a proper control when we get to the later stage. So the use of the BIM execution plan, especially in the early part of the projects, needs to be careful. Need to be carefully understand first. Okay, so this is it's a very crucial document when we try to adopt BIM in our projects. Okay, so hopefully we can discuss more about this. This is very interesting to hear from you guys. Okay. Right. Okay. So in developing the level of detail requirements, so how do we need to have it? Okay. Because we as a QS, okay, imagine that you as a QS and you are not going to be used much of the 2D drawings. Okay, you are more be involved in a 3D environment, and imagine that your client will say to you that the modeler or the BIM manager will give you the access to read on the BIM model, and QS please come up with the cost to it. Okay, so that's why we as a QS in the early parts, it's very important for us to at least know what we should do at the early stage of it. Okay, because it will be made known to the whole project teams that how we want to execute these projects. For example, if let's say we want to fully utilize the BIM model, so what you as a QS can do, if let's say this is a situation, okay, of course we need to come out with the standards, right? Again, about standards, so it's very technical discussion. So I hope that of course at the end of the this event, whether in a survey, you can give your insight as well. Okay, so going back to our discussion, so the first thing we need to align when we develop a standard, we need to align with the construction phases specified in the standard. Okay, because even even we talk about the project phases, right? There are a lot of terms that being used. For example, here I'm using the inceptions. Okay, the inception phase, the design phase, tendering, construction, and close out. But if let's say we go, we use rebar work stages, the latest one, it even involves the manufacturing. So we need to, as a QS, okay, we need to understand this first, all right, about the phases that we're going to. And then secondly is about the level of detail in terms of the information that we need to use across the project phases. Okay, we need to ensure that the level of detail used is sufficient to the requirements of the project owner, and then the standardize the terms with the design information requirements. Okay, put example like this. As you can see here, I'm using the LOD level of detail from the US, which use the LOD 100, LOD 200, LOD 300, and so on. So I believe even though this is originally comes from the US, but I believe in the Asia regions also sometimes we use these terms. All right. So to get this another perspective is that we need to determine, okay, so let's say up to LOD 200, okay, what types of information as the QS as you as the QS will require, okay. And if let's say we get to 300 or we get to 350, what kind of information that you require? So you as a QS manager, you need to have that kind of insight. You need to to understand that during the BIM model development, at the same time you be able to output your products as well, your service as well to the client, okay. And then vertically we're looking at the standard method of measurement. So I put here a standard method of measurement. So we have the elements, the structure, the superstructure, finishes. So it depends on what type of standards that you use. So make sure that across the LOD 100, 200, and up until 500, okay. So every elements are being detailed out, all right. So for example, at 200, I give that example in the next page, okay. So I'm sure that you'll be thinking why I'm touching on this topic, all right? Why I'm explaining about this topic. So talking about the current situation, regardless of 100, LOD 100 up to LOD 350, or we use LOD 1, LOD 2 up to LOD 5, we have been talking about the output from the graphical or the design perspective, or sometimes from the performance perspective. Okay, but remember, we as a QS, we need to maintain our values. So as a QS, we need to output the accurate costing. Okay, so to do so, we need to have enough information, okay, to continue to provide service to our client. Okay, so this is another layer. So we look at the first layer about the design, from the design perspective on the LOD. So another layer of level of information, we need to consider the cost aspects. Okay, so this is something that I basically we get this idea, all right, and it's not commonly that we heard being talked about and being discussed. So that's why I've said that when it comes to this topic, I also like to hear from your side, all right, how you deal with this level of information. Okay, so this is another examples that I like to share. So as you can see from my screen here, okay, just now when I mentioned about the horizontally, right, we have the project phases, the inception, the design, up to the cross-out phase. Okay, at the same time, we define the LOD in accordance to the design layers. All right, so there are some minimum requirements of information need to be prepared. Okay, but for us as a QS, we also need to prepare at the same time. Okay, so vertically moving towards moving downwards, we have the elements that we describe. Okay, for example, like that here I show example is the internal doors. All right, so imagine at the LOD 200, okay, which is maybe at the conceptual design stage. Okay, maybe the information that's sufficient for us is number of door leaves, right, the overall size of the opening. But as we go towards the next stage of the project phase, in a detail design, okay, we need more information to output more accurate costing. So that is the logic of it. So as a QS, we need to think on how we can develop this kind of information. Okay, so it's very, very important to plan and communicate the BIM deliverables to all parties, and it should be agreed at work stage all the project phases that the data information will be passed to the QS or the cost manager as a model, and the definitions of the information at each stage. Okay, so these definitions and work stages need to be aligned with the project milestone. Okay, so I hope that you get the idea about the QS LOD requirements. Okay. Okay, moving on to the third sections about the a powerful BIM execution plan during the pre-contract stage. Okay, as I said, that the pre-contract stage is a very crucial stage for us. Okay, so how do we implement this in a project? Okay, as a QS, as a cost manager, right? So it is crucial for us as a QS to identify the relevant section that we need to assess, especially just now when I touched on the BIM execution plan. So we need to analyze which are the parts that basically will guide a modeler to help us to output the information that we need. Okay, so we need to analyze the BIM execution plan, and then about the BIM protocol as well. You know that it basically identifies the building information models that are required to be produced by the project team and puts in place specific obligations, the liabilities, and associated limitations on the use of the model. All right, so the BIM protocol as well has to be assessed by the QS managers. And of course, if you're using the latest ISO protocol, so really is when it comes to the BIM, the development is it's very fast, and we always try to catch up. All right. And as I mentioned this earlier, all right, planning is as much important to the execution. Therefore, as a cost or the QS manager, we should be proactive in initiating strategy during the pre-contact stage. Okay. So as the leading digital provider, right, so I would like to introduce a little bit about Glodon as the company background, right? So we've been as the world top 5 AEC digital companies in the world, all right, and we are basically a listed companies, and we covers more than 100 countries, and we also have 9 R&D centers that basically deals with the built environment. And now that we're embarking to the digital twin, so we are heavily invested into that area as well. Okay, and of course, at the region currently, we are very much focused on the 5D BIM digital cost management solution. Okay, because we need to understand that everything actually starts with the cost, right? Not the design. If you start everything from the design, then you need to have a very wealthy client, I would say. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to explain a bit on the project execution map. Okay. When it comes to BIM, the keyword of BIM is the information itself. Again, when it comes to the model creation, from the BIM model, the QS may end up going to the traditional approach due to the difficulty in producing a good service to the client and maintain the values as someone who responsible to the client. So that's why, even though that we are using the BIM model, but when we fail to output a certain things, right, we are still we're going back to the 2D environment. Okay, because if, like I said, okay, if let's say we are not using the right tools when it comes to the cost, but at the same time we try to adopt BIM, okay, the question is how detailed you can go. So the 5D BIM by the Cubicos will basically enable you to provide accurate quantity takeoff and accurate cost estimates in compliance with the standard method of measurement, right? So we can output the professional reports that will definitely assist the project members, and even internally we will assist the procurement team, for example, right? So that is if let's say we talk about the second layers, but to experience, okay, to experience the full 5D BIM environment, we provide another integration solution that basically involving the technology of the cloud that enables you to connect your model to all your cost database. At the same time, you know, you're able to demonstrate to the client the best digital experience in managing the cost. Okay, So it's not just enough that we able to quantify and produce the quantity report. So we need to integrate this model with the cost database. We try to map out on the database that so that we have a full 5D BIM environment. Okay. And as a QS, of course, just now we talked about information across the project phases. Okay, so as a leading digital solution provider for the QS, we also offer the ways that we still able to digitalize our process. Okay, so from the pre-design, if you talk about the feasibility studies, the pre-design estimates, if you talk about the use of the, say, if I put the Revit model, okay, it's a common that we start with a Revit model. So we need to produce initial models like a prototypes, right, at the early stage. So that way, right, with the cubicle solution, we also able to help you to bridge that, right, to bridge that connection. So it regardless of what kind of a format that you receive from your team members, right, whether in a 3D or in a 2D, you're still able to utilize our solutions as early as in the pre-design stage. And of course, we cover the whole solutions at the pre-contract. So we have solutions even during the tendering stage, right? The consultants can utilize our e-tender, right, in preparations of the tender for the use of the tender addendum, the budgetary cost studies, the e-tender evaluation. So this is a unique situations where, again, if let's say we are using a design tools to do this, I'm not sure how we can do that. Is the name speaks for itself. But for the QS solutions, the cubicle solutions, we really focus on every aspect of QS activities. Okay, up to from the pre-design, from the costing, from the tendering, and even the integrate the collaborations, right, with the contractor also can be made with our e-tender solution, right? So that way they can really speed up the process of tender pricing, the design cost advice, and then the cash flow forecast, the value engineering. So this is, again, like I said, it's a unique experience that with the cubicle solutions, we still able to, maintain our normal practice, right, as a QS. At the same time, it's not just maintaining our values to the client, but definitely will improve the values to the client. And of course, if you join our page, usually we always update about the new developments that we have, right? Like recently, we also supporting a very how to say, a very detailed process on how we try to control our costs during the construction stage. Okay, so up to the final account, of course, we need to always maintain our costs to make sure that there's the project cost is able to be in control. At the same time, it gives you the right information that you can keep for the future use. So this is something that again, if when you experience the whole environment of 5D BIM, you can actually benefit a lot from it, and it goes back to the early values or early process on how we transform our business, right? So it's another poll time, all right? So it gives me time to rest. Let me share another poll to you guys. So moving on to the 5D BIM, of course, there are a lot of challenges, okay? And of course, your side is very, very important for us to hear from your side. what are the challenges that you, whether you are the cost professionals, or you are the costing engineer, or you are the QS, will face, right? If you want to move to the 5D BIM, okay, we want to hear from you, and we try to understand your concerns, right? And at least it gives us a sense of directions of what we can do better, and how we can actually develop the quantity surveying areas as a whole, right? So let's hear from you guys, right? What are your main issues to move to the 5D BIM? So the first one, we have the standard form of practice, right? So basically you do not know how to start. So there's no guideline, even though you have the tools, but maybe you have no guideline and procedures, right? And secondly, it's about a technical challenge. For example, like lack of skills, training, or poor support by the solution provider. Secondly, all right, it's about the organizational challenge, right? It's something to do with the leadership in the company, all right, and sometimes not exploring the new technology or the new process, or another new business model, right? Fourth is about the economic and the financial challenges. So sometimes that we want to adopt it, but sometimes we face that kind of challenge, either the economic challenge or the financial challenge, right? Such as the financial planning, lack of investment in technology, for incentive maybe by the government, things like that, right? And lastly is the cultural issues. For example, like the lack of national driven or new government agenda. So let's hear from you, and we will end our poll very, very soon. We will end in 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, let me share the results with you guys. Okay, so we have, when it comes to the standard forms of the practice, we have 53%, but the highest here is the technical challenges. Okay, the technical challenges, which, for example, like the lack of skills, training, poor support by the solution provider, right? So this is a technical challenge that maybe we face, and of course, it's glad that we hear this from you guys. Okay, so for our side, of course, we have our team to really really be sensitive about these results, and we try to continue to offer our best solutions, and at the same time to provide efficient service to the users, right? And then third, we have the second one, we have the economic and the financial challenges. So this ranks second one. Okay, also it's a very, very common to happen, and that's why we have this kind of webinar. We have this kind of series to improve the awareness, right? So now we in 2021, and perhaps we hope that we are getting better, especially with the current pandemic that we are having. Hopefully next year we'll be able to be more ready at the organization, right? Maybe to have a better financial plan, and a better strategy on how we can adopt the 5D BIM solutions, right? So of course we will discuss more about this in the future, hopefully. So I'm gonna end this, and let's move on to, I think we almost get to the end. And of course, to adopt the 5D BIM solutions, all right, they are success factors for digital transformation and the BIM cost management effectiveness. So I believe some of the things that I maybe have touched just now, all right? So it's good to hear from you guys again. The first success factors when it comes to adoptions of the 5D BIM, okay? Of course, as a QS, no matter what level you are at the moment, whether you're a student, whether you are at the junior level, or you are at the senior level, we need to have that mindset first, all right? So it's important for us to have a QS digital mindset, right? Having a QS digital mindset and even been practicing it for quite some times, and best that we have that kind of mindset at the very early stages, especially at the academic level. Okay, and of course, as the leaders also should integrate digital working practice into existing cultures and processes. Though this is basically slightly related with the on how we as a team leader, right? Maybe we need to basically promote this kind of culture, right? Whatever that we do, we try to digitalize ourselves, and then once we are ready, we will get to more advanced solutions, right? So first, it's important for us to have the mindset first, and secondly, of course, we need to have enhanced skills. So as you can see just now, that the highest challenge that we are facing is about having skills. So that's why for us at the Glodon, we feel this is our responsibility as well. So we always provide a free training or free workshop to our users, right? Even to the public, or any interested party, right? To basically attend and get some ideas on how we can, how we can improve our working practice. Okay, so another way of doing it, of course, sometimes maybe I also understand that sometimes at the university, sometimes we are a bit like to be exposed with this kind of environment. So of course, out there now with the we now everything's going online. So I believe you can also attend a lot of necessary trainings to enhance your skills and basically to improve the knowledge on the building information modeling, right? And another thing is, of course, we need to upgrade the capability in handling the 5D beam solutions. So going back to the early parts when I talk about the three types of the cost digital management, all right? So it is basically not an excuse for us to digitalize ourselves, right? And a third factor is the cost and cost information. Okay, so again, BIM is about the information, and for us as QS, we need to have a strong cost information. Beside the contractual matters, so QS need to focus on the information and the cost aspects of the projects. And like the architects, they focusing on the aesthetic and the functional aspects. The structural engineers on the structural safety and the durability of the structures. The MEP, they are more focused on the building services. So same goes to us for the QS. In BIM, we need to focus on the informations that basically closely related to us. Okay. And of course, the with the strong strong information or strong database, it basically improve our decision making process and a better guiding us in better guiding our path towards the digitalization. Okay, and last but not least is about having a suitable applications. Of course, I always mention that we need to have a right tool, right? So they again, like a previous session, previous webinar, I mentioned about when we as a QS, right, we shouldn't be afraid of the new technology, whether it replaces us or not, right? Same for this. Okay, we just need to have a suitable applications that helps us, right? Help us to increase our values. So the adoptions of the BIM should be as a facilitating technology and should not significantly disrupt the existing working norms and the practices. Okay, for example, like we've been measuring according to the SMM. Now maybe with a certain technology, all right, with the design tool, we cannot do that. So this is something that we have. It sounds like we have abandoned our key principle as a QS. So again, like I said, we need to have a good partner, all right, a good digital solution partner that basically understands your needs and your business. Okay, this is a last session before I end my presentations. I'd like to touch a bit on the effective BIM cost management with the detailed project information. So information is very, very important. And this time around, okay, we always talk about the visual side of it, but as a QS, we also need to focus on the non-graphical information. We have the common information on the measurement aspect, the cost database aspects, and finally on the project attributes. Okay, I'll just go through with you briefly about this. So about the common information is the information that we shared across the project team members, right? With the engineers, with the consultant, we have that common information, right? So the cubicles will offer you to still have this kind of information, right? It does not that it doesn't mean that you have your own tool, you have your 5D beam tool. It translates everything from the design. It doesn't work that way, right? So in terms of the project information, the floor setting, in terms of the beam attributes, okay, we still maintain that kind of information when we do our QS practice, okay. And secondly, is about the measurement, right? Of course, this is a strong values that we put. We always emphasize to our users about having standards method of measurement that suits with our needs. Okay, and of course now we sometimes in the big companies we run projects globally, right? So remember that for the QSOs, for the cubicle solutions as well, we support various of standard method of measurement for you to to keep maintain your values to the client. Thirdly, it's about the cost database. Okay, this is more towards our solutions on the TBQ, right? So we need to have the information that we have is the like the previous projects, like our unit rates or our labor rates and things like that. It has to be connected. Like I said, it has to be connected with the model, right? So it gives more, I would say, a full picture of the 5D BIM environment. And with the contractor submissions, all right, you don't have to keep a lot of information in a physical form, right? Even your tendering process also, you can transform it. Okay, you can transform that process and you still have that kind of information with yourself for the future use. Okay, so you do remember that for the key, because when it comes to the cost information, I believe that there's nothing short of it. Okay, so you can it always can help you in making a better decision, right, in your projects. And last but not least is the project attributes. So this is sometimes I come across a situation where we try to develop our own software. We hire a software engineer to develop the ecosystem, a new cost ecosystem. So I guess this gonna bring up some transaction costs within the organization. So with project attributes, basically it adds another functions to our solutions, where there are maybe some of the informations are not there for your needs. So that way you be able to modify yourself to add more information inside your model, right? So that is the unique thing that we have recently. Okay, despite of a lot of informations I mentioned earlier, right, about having the measurement, about having a detail, even a detailed formulas of how we come up with certain quantities. Okay, on top of that, we have these project attributes to satisfy more of your needs. Okay, so we basically want our users, okay, we want our users to be strengthened with the BIM application. So using 5D BIM will definitely helps you to increase the productivity by focusing on the high value tasks, right? And things like just now I mentioned about developing the new software by yourself, all right? Sometimes we try to integrate with external software and try to connect with your organization, that brings up a lot of risks that not just it's hard for us to maintain, but again, we lose our productivity there, right? And it gives also some distraction, especially during our normal working hour. And most importantly, when it comes to the information for the cubicles we shared across the team members, because we always try to promote the collaborative working environment. Okay, so no matter and how many numbers that you have in a team, that you're still able to have a common database, you have a common platform to work together, right? So definitely there are more to share when it comes to the information, it comes to a lot of other features, but today our team is more towards information, right? So to know more, of course, no matter where you are, you can always engage with us and don't hesitate. I'm sure all my friends in Glodon are friendly and happy to assist you in your 5D BIM journey, okay? So as the summary, right? I just like to mention about these 3 points. We always need to have a positive mindset, right? No matter what kind of situations that we are in, it doesn't stop our some of our values. It doesn't lose, and it just going to strengthen. So we need to accept the new ideas, the new process, technology in making a continuous progress. Okay. And secondly, of course, to have a best journey in 5D BIM environment, you need to have a best digital partner and right application. And of course, at the same time, it promotes the team communication and collaboration at all levels. And you need to, of course, the transformation, it doesn't just work in the private sectors, but of course at the public level as well. We hope that there's a standards or examples available for us. And we, of course, no matter what the progress is, a small progress is still a progress to us. And we like, of course, like I said, I like to hear more. So give us your feedback later after this session. And I think that is all from me for today. And I shall pass this session back to my friend here, Kimi.
Hey, Nas.
Hi.
And thanks for the wonderful in-depth sharing. So especially on the topic of level of details in BIM and cost management, which is not very common topic that we can listen and learn from any other talks. And thus I believe that our audience must be able to take away some good points from here. Now, we are not going to drag further. We will move to the highly anticipated Q&A session. So allow me to remind everyone one more time that you may post your questions to us by simply typing in your questions at the Q&A channel. Well, we thanks everyone for being so active, and also thank you for posting in your questions to us. So Nas, are you ready? I believe right now you are looking at those questions that raised up by our audience today.
Yes.
So I will pass the time to you, and hopefully that you will repeat some questions and then share your answers, share your advice with our audience.
Okay. Of course, I hope that you can just send us your questions and try to be nice with me. Okay, so I'm gonna answer one of the questions that we have here. Okay, so this is a question from Wasim. Okay, so Wasim asking whether is there any a BIM standard regardless of the regions or the country. Okay, it's a very good questions because just now also I always talk about the standards. So whether or not we have that kind of BIM standards, of course, no matter where you are, you're practicing, right? Sometimes in organizations, we already have that kind of standards. Okay, because in adopting a BIM for a project, the project owner may not have the a technical expertise to carry on their project with BIM. Okay, so as experts, you need to have that kind of standard. Sometimes the standards are being developed at the organization level. So we use the standard. Sometimes we use the standards from latest we have from the ISO on how we try to maintain the information and how we share the information across the project teams, right? So it gives us insight again, right? What needs to be done say at the design stage, and as we move on to the construction stage, how we can still maintain that. Okay, talking about the standards, so it really depends on the countries, where some countries they have a mandate on the BIM, like in UK now they are pushing to the BIM level 3. So they are really focused on changing the standards to the ISO standards, right? So as for the US, okay, the standards from the BIM forums, I'm talking about the standards of the information. So the BIM forum in US are widely used, and sometimes for us in other regions, right, especially in the developing countries, the BIM is not being mandated, right? So that's why we have a foreign standards that being used for the local practitioners. Okay, for some countries, okay, remember, for some countries that mandate the use of the BIM, okay, you need to follow the standards that the national standards, right? It usually being released, all right, to the practitioners, to the industry practitioners. Okay, that is the national standards. But if let's say your country is not releasing any of the standards, of course, you can always refer from the practice in the UK, from the US, or in Singapore. If talking about in Southeast Asia region, in Singapore, the government, they are doing quite well in terms of developing the standards. Okay, and of course, the standard is just a standard. All right, it's like a contract form, right? There are parts that you need to amend. You need to analyze the sections, the details of it carefully to make sure that it relevance to the needs of the client. Okay, so the keywords and having the standard is about to make sure that it suits and it match to the requirements of your client. Okay, no matter what kind of standards you adopt, make sure that your clients' requirements are being matched. Okay, so I hope that answers the questions. All right, so another questions I have here from from Ahmad, from Ahmad Muhammad. Okay, from experience, how can engineering consultancy convert from CAD to BIM LOD 500, and how it could be for construction companies? Also, is LOD 500 the last level of the development? Okay, so how can we, for the engineering consultant converting from CAD to BIM? From BIM LOD 500. Okay, so just now you talk about the BIM LOD 500. Okay, it's about having the information that you use for the operation purpose and the maintenance purposes, right? So again, it goes back to earlier points that we touched about having the right tools to suit your needs. Now you are talking about having the right tools, right? You're talking about having the capability to produce the BIM model up to LOD 500. Okay, of course you need to engage and you need to analyze what are the tools out there that suits with your need. Of course, CAD is just another format that you produce, but to match with your needs, you can engage with a digital solution provider that able to suit with this kind of company. So this is more towards the engineering point of view. Okay, so whatever it is, try to engage and get to know on how they can help you. I have another questions here from Ching Ping Ting. Okay, I want to know the cubicles can sync to the synchro. There is the changes of the quantities. Example for the volume of concrete. I'm not quite sure what are the. I believe that you are talking about the right. Is it the design tools that you want to connect with the cubicles, right? There is some questions that you have for. I think this is about the integration with the other software. All right. Bear in mind that when it comes to the cubicles, basically, we have our own environment. Okay, when it comes to the 5D BIM environment, we have our own environments and applications. Okay, and if let's say this synchro, right, it can output a format that the formats that maybe for us can read it is what is that format? Sorry, I forgot. The IFC format. Yeah, sorry, IFC format. I'm talking about the IFC format. Then you should be able to connect with the cubicle solutions. But if you're talking about the raw files from this synchro, then we unable to connect with that. Okay, so if let's say you output your model from to the IFC format, okay, with this is talking about the structural quantities. For example, here for the volume of the concrete. Okay, just like how you develop your models, right? We develop throughout the project phases, and we have changes, and you develop your model. So that models, as long as it can be translated into the IFC format, we should be able to connect with the cubicles, right? And with the cubicles, and you able to come out to extract out the volume quantities, not just the volume quantities, but what's that, the reinforcement as well as for the formwork as well, we can output that. So that is like I said, we are focusing on the detailed quantities of it, right? So we can do more than that, not just the volume of the concrete. Okay. Okay, Wasim asking here is about the 5D BIM is the final stage, or there is a more like a 6D, 7D, and 8D. Of course, in terms of the dimensions are being it is being developed throughout the times, right? Even the definitions of the 5D BIM now may not be aesthetics. There are more inputs that gives to it to satisfy from the cost dimension. Okay, we discussed this in our previous webinar, right? And of course, it is not just the final stage. Okay, so we talk more on the other dimensions, right? From the 3D to the 4D and up to, I'm not sure how many dimensions there are currently, but it does not just stop from the 5D. So of course, for us, we only focus on the area of the 5D beam, because remember that no matter what dimension that we are looking, and no matter what kind of beam solutions that we trying to adopt, as long as it meets to our clients' requirements. So I hope that that answers your questions. Definitely, there are more to it. Yes, yes, Jinping, yes, you need to export to the IFC. So just now talking about the synchro, so you need to export to IFC, and then like I said, remember the points that I'm talking about having a common information. So common information is part of it. We have the beam attributes. So whatever attributes that you put that you work maybe in synchro just now, right? It will be maintained. For us, we will just focusing on the cost aspect to it. And if there is the unique thing, okay, if you're the unique thing, if let's say I'm not sure your overall situation, right? Perhaps that you are in a design department, right? And you want to export that file to your cost department, the contractual department. So this is a situation that commonly happen in a developer, right? So if you output that IFC files and you pass it to the cost department or the contract department, they be able to read it, right? So they will come up with the volume quantities, the formworks, and even the reinforcement quantities, and not just the structures, include with the architectures, with the cubical solutions. So that of course, when we talk about BIM, it also talks about the working environment that that you can collaborate with other party, especially internally before you get to the external party. So do engage with us after this. Maybe we can maybe we can try to do some demonstration to you on how we can use the other software. And at the same time, for the QS, we will work out from either from the Revit files or either from the IFC file. So I touched these points in a previous webinar, right, about having a collaborative tools. Okay, so do engage with us, and we can see. We hope that we can satisfy your needs, and at the same time give maybe your team also can join us, right? Okay, I think there's one last question here from Tungka Oi. So for this BIM 5D, so for BIM solutions, do we need to use together with the Glodon's other products, such as TS, TRB, TME to do a quantity takeoff? Okay, it depends on this the business model that you are having currently. Okay, there are some. If you talk about the if you talk about, sorry, I may have a disruption on the connection. Okay, do we need to use other Glodon's products? Okay, for let's say your companies only deal with a certain element. So we talk about structures and structures and the architectural parts. Okay, definitely for the TME, it may not be applied to you because TME is more towards the building services. Okay, again, like I said, TAS and TRB is a quantity takeoff tools, and you need to connect with the our TBQ solutions to fully experience the 5D BIM environment. Okay, so that it fulfills the whole picture of controlling the project costs. Okay, so I hope that answers you. And why we do it separately? Sometimes some clients they do not need every element, so sometimes they just need a few solutions. So that's why having a more specific solutions basically will basically help them to suit with their business model. So I hope that answers your question, Tung Ka Ui. So we can see more about this. So in Sri Lanka, when we will get TME, so I think we have some good news after this, and I think that's all for the Q&A sessions, Kimi.
Hi, Nas. Thanks for in-depth elaborations and the wonderful sharings. I believe our audience are truly impressed by what you have shared with us today. So due to the time constraint, we won't be able to answer all the questions in this session, but we will surely respond to you separately after this webinar. And allow me to update everyone that so for participants who have participated this full live webinar, you'll be also receive the webinar e-certificate in the following week. So do check out your registered email inbox. And for those who have more questions for us, like Nats mentioned just now, if you would like to see more information and some in-depth, for example, sharings or demonstrations, do engage with us. If you'd like to have any in-depth discussions, also please feel free to contact us, contact our team. So you may note down our regional office direct contact, or you can actually find us from our website address. So all the email address from our regional office has been stated here. You can just note down and then yeah. So look forward to engage with you soon. And last but not least, we like to take this opportunity to share a big news. The upcoming QBCOS TME 5D Bean Quantity Takeoff for MEP New Product Launch event will be held virtually on 14 October. So this is the upcoming event that just now Nats mentioned. MEP Innovations Goes Beyond Beam is all about enhancing MEP quantity takeoff process, move beyond manual quantification of MEP by generating meaningful and complete quantities directly from the model in a truly digital workflow. This event will also unpack how BEAM MEP digital quantity takeoff solutions are being applied to deliver projects even more efficiently. Meanwhile, you can take the link from our chat box and make your registration for our upcoming event. Or actually, you can copy this link and share with your industry friends who may find this meaningful. At the same time, you may also follow our social media platform, Facebook and LinkedIn to get more events information. And now coming to the end, I hope you all enjoyed today's session and found it fruitful and meaningful. Lastly, we appreciate you can take 2 minutes time to complete the event survey by clicking the event link, the survey link in the chat box. We thank you for taking the time to join us and share your feedback with us. Once again, we truly appreciate your support and we really enjoy engaging with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you stay safe, stay tight and light, and we see you soon online. Goodbye.
No matter how we start our day, it seems that we are rushing around doing the same old things and suffer from work inefficiency. Sometimes we feel helpless in managing our tasks overall. Want to change this? We bring you QBCOS, a beam-based cost management solution. The world is constantly changing, but we can always find a way to cope and respond wisely. For a better life, we shall stay calm and work things out easily. With the proper tools and approaches, we forge our own direction efficiently. Without restrictions, we unlock potentiality and do things more meaningfully. Over the time, we are more than colleagues. We work together speedily with little effort and greater return. We complete our work faster so we can lay back and enjoy life. We are working for concrete jungle, but we will retain our humanity. While there's nothing difficult, there's always someone who can help us through. Correcting mistakes is common, and it shouldn't be the reason for us slowing down. Looking at the big picture, when all of the results can be seen, everything is within our grasp. Dealing with problems speedily, steadily, accurately, and firmly. We grow stronger when we practice more often. Looking back at the past while plotting the future is the key for success. We review all the previous projects to prepare for the future. This is to increase the probability and success in future projects. We will struggle with details, which are now been taken care of. Many little things grow into something much bigger. We obey the principles and fight for the details. Every effort shall be seen, and none of them would be wasted. While we forge a path, we review the past. Each ordinary road has a path to follow, and every bright future is accumulated by the past. When our efforts have been digitized, the records of our footprints lead us to the future. Numbers are cold and indifferent, but dreams are burning and driving us forward. To achieve greater success with better work efficiency and management convenience. Cubicost, providing you with a beam-based cost management solution.